Today is Friday, June 23rd, and we're going to go around the bases with our MLB insider at the New York Post. He is Jon Heyman. Jon, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you, Ryan?
I'm doing well. We're going to start off with our top story, the New York Yankees offense. It continues to struggle, Jon, without Aaron Judge. Giancarlo Stanton continues to struggle. Josh Donaldson continues to struggle, batting 127. DJ LeMahieu took a couple games off of this series and still did not have a good night last night. Even though they did win this series this week, Jon, they only scored 9 runs in 3 games, averaging 3 runs a game. This offense is not producing without their star. What is the panic level for this team when you're looking at this offense as its current state?
Yeah, I don't know what to say about all those guys who are good players and are not performing. What I do know is they need Aaron Judge back. And I'm not saying come back now while you're still hurt, but I mean, that is the solution. At this point, this has been gone on for a couple of weeks. They have not performed without him. Donaldson down in the 120s. You've got Stanton. They keep saying very streaky. Obviously, he's on the wrong end of that streak. LeMahieu, I do not know what's going on with him. He doesn't look like he can hit at all. So, I don't know if they'll hit better with Judge. I do know this. If Judge is in the lineup, he'll hit, and they'll score more than 3 runs a game because that is just not going to get it done. Thankfully, it looks like he's going to start taking swings. Perhaps Sunday. Could be back a week to 10 days after that. That's my estimate. They're not putting any timetable on anything. They've been very careful about that. I mean, they didn't rule out that he could miss until the All-Star break. Let's hope that's not the case. But, they need him. That's all I can say.
Are you, as you're an observant of this team and you've covered them for a while, have you seen a team, like I said, I think I asked you this last week, but just to go a little bit deeper,
I get
a team that's so reliant on just one player, it seems like, because the other veterans that you talk about that are getting paid lots of money are not providing any offense at all, really, for this team.
Right. Yeah, I don't recall a team where everybody else who's good. They have good players. Just fell down without their star player there. You'd be testing my memory on that one. I mean, it's rare to see a player who produces like Aaron Judge. I mean, lifetime, his OPS plus is like 174. I mean, Mickey Mantle, Willie Mays, Joe DiMaggio, they're all in the mid 150s. So, I mean, obviously you're going to miss a guy who's that good, who to this point in his career has been a better offensive player than many of the greatest players of all time, basically
right.
Almost anybody but Babe Ruth. So obviously they're going to miss him, but it's hard to understand why the other guys just don't seem to be able to perform without him. I'll say this: we keep including Anthony Rizzo in this. That's a little bit unfair. He had a bad week. I get it. It was like 4 for 48 or something like that. But I mean, obviously overall he's been very good. He's in a bit of bad luck. That sweet spot percentage, they got a stat for everything these days, but sweet spot percentage, he's third. Last I looked to Freddie Freeman and Corey Seager, and they're doing well. So I think he's just hitting in bad luck, but it's the other 3-4 guys that really, I don't know what happens to them without Aaron Judge. It's like they need him or something.
Yeah, and I think it's just really concerning considering when you talk about their age, their injury history, and, you just don't, I don't know.
But they're not 38. They're not 40. I mean,
Donaldson is. That's it. But Giancarlo's in his early 30s.
Late 30s. He's not
late 30s.
Quite as old as Scherzer or Verlander.
Right.
Then we can get it. They're in middle age. I mean, I'm past middle age now, but middle age it's not for athletes. I'll tell you that. Especially, I think with the pitch clock is probably affecting the whole thing. But
right.
I mean, to me, LeMahieu is not that far removed from being a really good player. Donaldson, when he was on the Twins, his last year had an OPS plus 127. I understand that's not Aaron Judge or Mickey Mantle territory, but it's basically all-star or close to all-star level. That's not that long ago. And Stanton, I still believe in Stanton. He is very streaky. I do see that.
Mm-hmm.
He's obviously on a very bad streak now. I think he will be back. The others I can't vouch for at this moment.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's interesting. Can't really explain it right now that why they're not hitting. But they got a tough series coming up against the Rangers this week, the best team in the West. Let's go to our next topic here, Jon. The New York Mets. They dropped another series to the Houston Astros. First game looked good, but even in a game where they score 7 or more runs, their record is not good. They're just pitching. Their starting pitching's not there. They just demoted Tyler McGill down to AAA after he's been struggling lately. Scherzer had a great start. Verlander was so-so. But John, there's this curious question of if the way the Mets are currently at the rate they're going, could you see them? And this is a what if, but could you see them become sellers before the trade deadline?
Well, in today's post, I wrote about some possible surprise sellers, and they were one of 6 teams. Now they were the 6th team, and I put it at 10%. I think it's unlikely. I've heard a little bit of talk about that. They're not saying that publicly. To me, when I ask, they really don't expect to be a seller, and I get it. They're, as one executive on another team put it, they've already put all their chips in. Are they really going to back them out now? It's pretty hard to do that. So I do think it's very unlikely. National League's going to take more wins than we thought. You could probably get in with 85 wins if you're in the Central and you win the Central, but as the wild card, it's still going to take high 80s, and they're really going to have to hustle to get there. So, I do think it's unlikely. If they do sell, I doubt they'll do this, but the big chip would be Pete Alonso. He hasn't signed an extension. He's got a year to go. At this point, Scherzer and Verlander probably not tradable, so they're not in the mix. They would get a fair amount for Robertson. Obviously, everybody needs bullpen. He's been outstanding. They should be able to get something for Raley and Ottavino. Maybe Carrasco, if somebody's really desperate. Obviously, it's not performed well. Quintana, we'll see when he comes back. So, they've got some pieces, but they don't have that many great pieces to trade anyway. So, I think that's a little part of the equation. The biggest part is they're $387 million or something, $377 million into this and $110 million more in tax. And they have good players with track records. And that's why I put it at 10% to sell.
So you say 10%, and it's the Mets roster right now. This is it. There's no extra help. There's, like you said, there's no injured player that's coming back besides a Jose Quintana that's going to come back and help save this roster. Who you have is what their lineup is. So unless you're going to go into that deadline as a buyer, which again, that'd be a tough sell. I feel like for Steve Cohen, like, we're going to add more payroll to this roster when it's already the highest in the history of the game. It's a tough sell, I feel like, for a Billy Epler to say we could be buyers if the team continues to struggle and stay at that 500 or below 500 mark. It's an interesting question to pose, like that 10%. Could it be more when we get closer to the deadline?
Well, it could always go up or down, but certainly if they're this far under, it's difficult to really envision that you're going to be a champion. Everybody wants to be the next 2019 Nats, 2021 Braves. Those are aberrations, They better turn it around pretty quickly. Right. And unlike the Yankees, who've had many injuries, the Mets are basically, now that Verlander and Scherzer are both back, they're basically close to full strength. Obviously, Quintana might help them somewhat now that McGill and Peterson just really haven't done it, and they could use him. Maybe they call up Mauricio. Obviously, they've gotten some good performance when they've gone to the minors. Overall, Alvarez has been good. Beatty has been good defensively. He hasn't hit that much more than Escobar now, as it turns out. And Vientos, they barely gave him a chance. So, I'm not going to count that against Vientos, but it didn't work for whatever reason, not his fault. But Mauricio is a possibility. Now, he's made, I think, like 15 errors down in the minors. So it's a bit of a question, and they don't want to rush someone who's made, on pace to make 30 errors. But, maybe he could provide a little bit of a spark there. Yeah, in terms of buying, what do you buy? If you're a buyer, I would say bullpen is probably going to be exhausted the way the rotation is done. The bullpen's exhausted, and they need some reinforcements. They're relying on Leon and Brigham, who've been, obviously they've been around. They're solid pitchers, but, are they championship pitchers in big spots? Yeah, I'm not so sure, right? So I would say the bullpen needs reinforcement. Hard to trade for rotation. The rotation's been bad.
Yeah.
Where you're not replacing Scherzer or Verlander or Senga, and that's going to be the top of your rotation. You're not going to add another big time starter to this mix. So it'd be interesting to see what they would buy if they are a buyer. But as far as being a seller, I'm not going to raise it from 10% at this point. That's about it.
Yeah, the Mets are currently sitting at 34-40, 7 games behind the Braves in the NL East. They've already been passed by the Phillies. So, and they have a 3-game set against the Phillies coming up this weekend. So it's going to be interesting to see if this team can turn it around quickly before the deadline approaches. John, let's go to our next topic here. And speaking of the trade deadline, like you said, you wrote about the surprise sellers before the deadline comes up here. What are some of those other teams you're looking at that could be some surprise sellers that could be looking to trade some of those pieces and get some good returns?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the Central. I expect Minnesota, which is generally held first place, to be a buyer. Milwaukee, I don't think they'll sell again after the Hader deal and the bad reaction they got on that. The Reds are very hot, but there are a lot of other teams in the Central that are kind of in the middle. Right now, they're almost all in the race, but, as things shake out, I think we'll need to look at the Central to perhaps save what looks like a very severe seller's market at this point. Right now, we've got only a few teams that are clear sellers: the Royals, the A's, the Nats. We'll see about maybe the Pirates. Maybe the Tigers, though I'm hearing they don't really want to sell. They want to show some progress. So I'm looking at the two Chicago teams in particular, and I'm looking at Cleveland as potential sellers. Right now, Cleveland and the Cubs are clearly in the mix, not far off of first place. So no guarantee that they will be sellers. I do think they are smart teams. They are realistic teams. And if they don't think they're a World Series contender, they may do some selling, and there are pieces there. Shane Bieber, outstanding starting pitcher. I'm hearing from teams that are buyers saying, "Oh, he slipped a bit." I mean, baloney. The guy's a really good pitcher. He's good. I mean, come on,
Yeah,
stop
baloney.
it already. He's got a 3 ERA. Let's cut it out. The Cubs have a lot of pieces that they could sell. Marcus Stroman, obviously, we remember him in New York, is a little bit of a controversial figure. He's a New Yorker, but he on the mound, he's been incredible this year. One of the best pitchers in baseball. So if they sell, even though he's a rental because he's got that opt-out after the year, they could get a ton for Marcus Stroman, I do believe. And then you've, of course, got Cody Bellinger, who's now back, a very versatile player. Be obviously could play first, but he's very good in center. Could move to left. I recommended him for the Yankees potentially, although you know what, McKinney and Bowers have been two of their better players lately, so we'll see about that. But obviously, we know Cody's dad Clay played for the Yankees. Cubs could have a pretty good sale. The White Sox, to me, that's the interesting one. They are right now really not in the race. They're going to have to hustle to get back in the race. So I know they expected to be in the race. I expected them to be in the race. I didn't have them as a playoff team, but I know a lot of people did. And, they've got a lot of talent. And if right now they're more than 10 games under. So even in the Central, that does not look like a winning formula. If they sell, that could be very interesting. Obviously Giolito, who's a free agent, would be on the block, and some other guys who are free agents. They have some relievers. Joe Kelly, who's obviously a very hard thrower, solid reliever. He could go. Clevenger, if he's healthy, he could go. But you know what? The White Sox, they may be fed up at this point with this nucleus, which has underperformed for more than a year at this point. I mean, I wouldn't rule out, and I haven't heard this particularly, but I'm sure there are moments where they're thinking about it. Why not just reset the whole thing and then trade Dylan Cease, who's not having a great year? Luis Robert in center is having a good year. Both those guys could get you a haul. They could be the star of this market if they decide to reset. Like I said, more likely they just trade Giolito and the relievers. Kendall Graveman will throw in there too. But if they reset, and they put on the market Cease and Robert and Moncada, they may be the belle of the ball.
Yeah, and it could inject some life into the deadline, like you said, and could make some more premier players available. And you could.
That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, that's what we're hoping for.
We're hoping because Ohtani is not going anywhere. I mean,
no.
How are they trading him? I mean, they're in the race, and Artie Moreno, I saw at the owners' meeting 2 weeks ago. He clearly does not want to do it, and I can't really blame him.
And it's hard to get an equal return for an Ohtani player when you can't equate how
I would have done it last year. I mean, I've been over this before, but I would have traded him last year when you had 2 years to go and you would have gotten a ton. I don't think they have a great chance to re-sign him, but they're going to give it a shot. They've done a good job spending on stars, keeping stars. They haven't done a great job winning and being in the playoffs, but I mean, look at all the stars that have gone through there. Beyond the fact they've kept Trout, they signed Pujols. They signed Hamilton, they signed Upton, they signed Rendon. Now, obviously, not all of them have worked perfectly, but they did
Right.
sign them.
Yeah, they have. And it's like you said, it'd be tough it'd be tough. And it doesn't look like he's going to be going. All right, let's bring this all home, John. Your disappointing team of the week. Do you have more than one?
I do. I could not separate. Three teams did not win a game all week. The Pirates, the Rockies, and the A's. Now, I feel bad about the A's. This is multiple times they've won this award, this honor. I shouldn't call it an award. I mean, it's amazing the streaks that we're seeing now. The Giants finally lost last night in a big way, but they were on a long winning streak. The Reds were on a long winning streak, and now we've got three teams on a long losing streak. The A's back to threatening that 62 Mets record, along with the Royals. Don't want to leave the Royals out. They did win a game this week, so they didn't get the honor again. But I mean, I don't know what's happened with the Pirates. They were in first place probably longer than anybody in that Central, and they haven't won in more than a week at this point. The Rockies as well. The Rockies are a team that probably should be a seller. They're not a team that likes to sell, so we'll see about that. But they actually have some veteran players, including Bard, who could certainly help out teams. There's going to be a big market, at least on the buyer's side, for relief pitching. So if you got a good relief pitcher, you should be able to get a ton for him. And Bard would be a guy that the Rockies could trade. But those three teams get my disappointing team of the week.
John, does it ever get tired talking about the MLB trade deadline, even though it's still like a little bit over a month?
Well, better now. We still have a long way to go. No, we're not even to July yet, right? So we're just getting started. So
fans eat it up, though, John, and you're the best when it comes to the deadline. I appreciate you as always. Let's do it next Friday again, man.
All right, great talking to you, Ryan. See you later.